Good evening. Welcome to KTN Sunday Night. I am Anne Kiguta. Checkpoint will be coming up a little later in the program as we take stock of the Jubilee government's 100 days in office. But first, our top stories tonight.
The strike is fully in force.
Make us a better offer, Nut tells government. We have no mandate to try Uhuru and Ruto, Africa Court of Justice says. The amazing story of the Kitengela woman with manly powers. And we bring back the memories with the story of Joyce Chepkemoi. Thank you for joining us. A high-level meeting of the National Executive Committee of the Kenyan National Union of Teachers failed to end the teachers' strike, instead resolving to reject the 3 billion shilling commuter allowance that was offered by the government. The union wants the allowance, which was to be implemented in phases, paid at once. NUT says it is ready to go back to the negotiating table with the government to try and resolve the pay deadlock as the teachers' strike enters its fourth week.
The Sunday meeting of the Kenyan National Union of Teachers, top decision-making organ, lasted just over 3 hours, with the National Executive Council taking stock of the 3-week teacher strike, and it is not yet mission accomplished.
Munataka mgomo uendelee? Munataka ukae vipi?
The strike is fully in force.
Union officials who have been engaging government in talks over the teachers' pay dispute tabled before the NEC the offer by the government, 3 billion shillings for commuter allowances, which will be phased out over the next 12 months.
The teachers of Kenya are not happy with their salaries being phased. Let it be paid all at once.
The union, which is demanding the full implementation of commuter, medical and house allowances under a deal brokered in 1997, wants the government to address all aspects of the deal.
For the teachers to be able to walk to school, they must sleep properly. Yeah? So, simply before giving us the commuter, allow us to sleep in decent places.
The union has rejected the offer, throwing the ball back to the government.
The National Executive Council would like an improvement on the offer on commuter allowance.
Engagements are fully also in top gear.
NUT's rival union Coupet, which signed a deal with the government last week, defended its move to settle for the 16.2 billion shilling deal.
The deal was good in the circumstances. We have already explained that it was not the best we could get in the marketplace, but given the circumstances, we struck that deal.
With not vying to push on with the strike, it is back to the drawing board in efforts to try and get teachers back to school. The strike is now set to enter its fourth week, with the union insisting that it is not mission accomplished yet. Rita Tinina, KTN.
And we'll be coming back to discuss that story in view of the 100 days that the Jubilee government is set to mark this Thursday. But let's move on now, and it is barely 2 months since the Africa Union resolved to push for the referral of the ICC cases facing President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto to the Africa Court of Justice. Now, that court says they have no mandate to try the two, since Kenya has not declared its recognition of the African Court, and they can't handle criminal cases just yet. KTN's courts reporter Winnie Kamau reports.
25(3)(a) of
In a bid to have the Kenyan criminal cases facing President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto withdrawn from ICC, it now emerges Kenya has another hurdle it will have to overcome.
We will not be doing a criminal case because we are a human rights court. But if there's been a violation of the African Charter, of any provision of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, Kenya has ratified the protocol, but Kenya has not yet made the declaration.
This was a statement made by the President of the African Court, Lady Justice Sophia Akufo, addressing journalists in Nairobi ahead of a seminar to sensitize the state on the African Court. As of January 2013, only 6 of the 26 state parties to the protocol had made the declaration recognizing the competence of the court to receive cases from NGOs and individuals. The 6 African states so far that have made the declaration are Burkina Faso, Ghana, Malawi, Mali, Rwanda, and Tanzania. Another complication that might complicate the quest to have the ICC hand over the cases to Africa is the fact that the court is yet to have its mandate expanded to enable it to handle criminal cases. Winnie Kamau reporting for KTN.
The British High Commissioner to Kenya, Christian Turner, now says he will present the complaints of the Kenya Miraa farmers and members of parliament to his government over the impending ban on Miraa by the United Kingdom. Turner, who was on a tour of Nyeri County, says he will relay concerns by Kenyans to Her Majesty's government in London. He says it is a global ban and not targeted at Kenya alone, and it is aimed at addressing health and social risks. The High Commissioner spoke as the Meru County government prepares to present a petition to the British High Commissioner in Nairobi over the ban. Meru County Governor Peter Munya says the petition is among the options the Miraa growers in the county are pursuing to ensure the Miraa ban does not take effect.
Vizuri serikali ya Uingereza ikichukua hatua fulani iwe inafikiria kuhusu huo uhusiano wa miaka mingi. Tunafanya biashara nao, sisi hununua vitu kutoka huko. Kwa hivyo wananchi wa Uingereza upata pesa kutokana na Wakenya, kwa sababu sisi hununua vitu yao. Ni vizuri wao wanafikiria wakifungia zizi na serikali ya kwetu ikifikiria kufunga vitu yao utakuaje.
Motorists will have to dig deeper into their pockets as the price for super petrol and diesel has gone up in the latest price review released by the Energy Regulatory Commission. According to the statement, diesel, which has gone up by 3 shillings and 70 cents per litre, will now be retailing at 102 shillings and 86 cents, while super petrol has gone up by 1 shilling and 34 cents, will now retail at 109 shillings and 52 cents. The price of kerosene, however, has gone down by 2 shillings. The new prices have been attributed to the fluctuation of the dollar from 84 shillings and 30 cents per dollar in May to 85.65. That's the shilling to the dollar in June. While the price of crude went down 0.63%, super petrol and diesel went up by 3.32% and 2.08% respectively. We move forward now, and senators from around the country say they won't sit back and let their National Assembly counterparts continue what they are calling belittling of other constitutional office holders. The senators spoke in Mombasa as a war of words rages between the National Assembly members, the governors and the senators, with growing attempts to contain the alleged excesses of some governors.
I won't get into it.
In a meeting at a Mombasa hotel, senators drawn from all 47 counties were gathered to discuss their mandate and challenges they're experiencing within their counties. The meeting gave opportunity for the senators to react and add their voice to the ongoing war of words between governors and members of parliament.
Article 73 in particular provides for the responsibilities of leadership and enlists our state officers and state organs like us are expected to exercise our mandate. The authority given to us is a public trust, which we must exercise in a manner that, one, is consistent with the purposes and objects of the Constitution.
Just yesterday, Kandara MP Muthoni Wahome voiced what has been simmering within the corridors of the National Assembly as MPs plan what they call trimming the powers of the governors.
What we have now seen, actually, for me, is raising certain critical fears that the governors have lost direction.
Strive to support both levels of government instead of engaging in endless supremacy battles.
There is a bill expected to be tabled in Parliament to add and clip powers of governors' mandate within the county governments. Her sentiments have, however, been brushed off by Meru County Governor Peter Munya, who says MPs too should know their place according to the new constitution.
We are recommending a flag for governors for their counties, not the national flag. And I can assure you that will be passed by this parliament.
I have never blocked any road for 2 hours in Meru town. It is not even possible to do that. And I don't have a motorcade. If you have seen my car, I have two vehicles. My vehicle and the vehicle for security.
Governors and senators have opposed the National Assembly's move, saying the members of parliament have resorted to belittling other constitutional offices instead of undertaking house business of national importance.
Trimming those powers will require a constitutional referendum.
This, as the Wiper Party claimed, there are forces hell-bent to cripple devolution at its infancy stage. Senators were speaking in Mombasa, where they had a retreat on leadership. Zipporah Karani, KTN, Sunday Night Live.
Now, there are some jobs you'd expect only a man to do because of the sheer pain and amount of energy it takes to do them. This is the story of a woman who has defied her age to earn a living in a way that most women would rather not. And any person living in Kitengela town would tell you why.
Daybreak, and if you often drive along Kitengela towards the river, chances are that you've seen this woman. As early as 6 a.m., her day has already begun. 50-year-old Felicitas Nyambura, a single mother, beats the morning cold. She's heading towards the river to buy water, which she will then ferry back to Kitengela town for sale. It is her daily schedule, a 2-kilometer walk pushing the handcart. This journey is an easy one for her, as her jerrycans are still empty. Her destination, a water selling point in a river. The only woman in this business has mastered her way to deal with the men here. She fills her jerrycans and starts a journey back to Kitengela. This is a tough one for her. Making stopovers on her way back to take a rest. And after the 2 kilometers journey back to Kitengela, her clients in the busy town are waiting for the commodity which is scarce here, and her efforts make their work easier.
Nimempea hii kazi ya maji au ananiletea maji juu nimeona jua na bidii mingi amekosa kazi. Na huyu mama tushafanya kazi na yeye sana. Anatuzianga maji vizuri.
Felicitas tells us she started selling water after a company she was working for closed down.
Nikafikiria vile naweza kufanya ili angalau watoto wangu wasiteseke. Nikaanza kuchotea watu maji na mgongo. Nikaona watu hawatosheki maji, nikaanza kuchota na urubaru. Nikaona urubaru haitoshi, sasa nikajifundisha kubeba mkokoteni.
Felicitas, who is suffering from high blood pressure, says she has to do this job as it is how she can buy her medication, feed her children and take care of her expenses.
Nikiuza hiyo maji siwezi kopa kitu ya mtu kwa duka.
At the end of her day's work, Felicitas retires to her home where she spends her evening with her children. She hopes that one day her savings will accumulate and help her to open a business that will allow her to take a rest from the water business. As she ages, the job is becoming tougher and tougher for her. But for now, whether she retires to bed early or late, she rises with the sun for another busy day. Angel Katuse, KTN Sunday Night.
Wow, and we wish her and her family the very best. We move on now, and more than 20 years after they were evicted from their homes during the Molo ethnic clashes, over 1,000 victims are still landless and living in poverty. And as Kamji Menza reports, even though the government has always promised to resettle them, the wait for compensation and justice seems far from over.
They've been displaced for years, and their hopes of owning land now seems a distant dream, with most of them residing in slums in Turi, Kasarani, Mwatu and Elbagon. In the wake of the 1992 Molo land clashes, James Oirere Richard moved to Molo town, which he says was a bit safe. He now lives in this shanty house with his wife and 6 children.
Nilikuwa nafuga ng'ombe zangu na nilikuwa napeleka maziwa KCC. Kila siku tulikuwa tunapeleka kitu kama lita 40.
For now, James says he works as a casual laborer in farms, a job that he says is not promising and is only paid 120 shillings per day.
Na nilikuwa mkulima hata wa viazi wa pareto. Na hiyo vitu tangu siku hiyo mimi sijawahi kulikafa mpaka wa leo.
And so is Mary Wamboi Kariuki, sharing the same predicament. She says she's been forced to move from one house to another due to rent hikes, this being her 4th residence, housing 6 people.
Huwa hata ninasaidiwa, iko shosho mwingine alikuwa ananisaidia wakati mwingine mahali ya kukaa miaka 3.
Mary now farms on a small rented land in Turi, but she says sometimes she reaps nothing owing to the poor methods of farming she applies.
Na ukiwacha hiyo shamba utapata mtu mwingine ya kukukodesha juu watu ni wengi wale wakibisi wanajaa hapa.
A few months after the 1992 victims were displaced, the victims say they formed a group that through its leaders has for a long time fought for their justice.
Tumefuata, hakuna ofisi ambayo hatujaenda. Kila ofisi tumekanyaga na tunaambiwa waongoje.
In June 2006, however, their hopes were raised when the then Finance Minister Amos Kimunya announced that the government had factored in 400 million shillings to purchase land for their resettlement. But their hopes were dashed when the 1,500 acres of land in Molo, bought from the late Defense Minister Mjenga Karume, was used to resettle other people.
Tulipofika kwa hiyo shamba wa Karume wakati wa kugawanywa hivi, tulisimamishwa na askari wa AP, tukaambiwa hatupiti. Yule mtu anapita ni mtu mwenye ana barua ya kukondeshwa sha. Mtu mmoja nilistuka, alikuwa tajiri mkubwa mmoja wa Moro.
For now, the officials have in their possession documents showing their more than 20-year-old struggle for justice and their plight.
Serikali hawezi kukumbuka watu wale wanaitetu tabu ile iko naye.
Tupewa tu mahali ya kukaa. Hata igarau hata watoto wetu waonage wanaenda nyumbani kwao na ni wana Kenya.
The victims recall filing a case in 2006 to compel the government to resettle them. But until now, they say justice has never been served. Kamche Menza for KTN Prime in Nakuru County.
And it's time for us to take a short commercial break. On the other side of this break, the moving story of Joyce Chepkemoi. You do not want to miss that. And after that, I'll be with my panelists on Checkpoint. Don't go too far.
Kwa hivyo, sabuni ya unga iliyo bora zaidi nchini Kenya kwa mosho moja tu ni
Out to meet can attest to this. 5 years ago, at the height of post-election violence, Joyce Chepkemoi was caught at the center of a raging militia attack after the declaration of the presidential election results of 2007. They slaughtered her husband and burnt her face right in front of her children. Betty Kialo tells us this story of a woman who hopes that Kenyans will learn from her scars and will never rise against each other again.
5 years down, thoughts may have passed. Many might have forgiven the very people who inflicted pain, but the scars remain. This is the story of 28-year-old Joyce Chepkemoi.
Wajamaa wakaingia kwetu langoni karibu 20. So mzee Wesley Chiruyot alishikwa hapo na akafungwa mikononi mwake na akaanza kukata mzee one by one hadi kutoa siri yake ya ndani na kukata shingo kama kuku. Hata kuku ichinja wangi namna hiyo. Nikiona hapo naye waida wa jamaa wakanishika hapo na moto akakisha ndani ya katikati ya nyumba mwangu na kunitumbukisha uso namna hii. Akaanza kunichoma na kunikata shingo upande na upande hii.
What had followed next was a 9-month painful recovery in hospital and later the birth of Brian Kiplangat, her third-born child. Going back home was not easy, having to start afresh with nothing to her name.
Tabu kuna brangeti, gunia tu ya kuchufunika kwa nusu. Watoto nilikuwa nafunika gunia. Kapata birika kidogo nikapewa na mama nyingine. na sufuria nyingine ilikuwa imetoboka, nikaweka unga, nilikuwa napikia watoto sasa.
But what made it worse was the realization that people would look at her differently. In fact, her friends turned away, saying she was now an outcast. But nothing compares to the pain of a mother when her own children become afraid of her. The young ones constantly asking her when she would get her face back and look like other moms.
Hata anakuambia usikuje, tuna fulani, patia pesa fulani, wanakataa nigende na school fees. Wanatuma mtu kabisa juu ya tabu ya uso.
This was just the tip of the iceberg for Joyce. Just a week before I met her, she had undergone a corrective eye surgery. She tells me before then, she had never closed her eyes for 5 years. When it was time to sleep, she would simply cover herself with a bedsheet and wait for sleep to take over.
Huyo nilikuwa najifunika blanketi katikati, alafu nasika leso, najifunika macho. Juu watoto wakiniangalia macho, anasema fundi. Tena hiyo vitu za blanketi, huwa inaniingia macho ndani.
6 years down, Joyce is still trying to put her life back together, getting small handouts from neighbors who are slowly accepting her back into their circles.
Mwingine ananipea shilingi 10, shilingi 5, shilingi 2, shilingi ngapi, unga, nakuja kuishi na tabu.
The bigger task for Joyce is not only solely providing for her 3 children, but her face reconstruction. Julius Rono has been her rock. He shows us just what is remaining for Joyce to have her face back.
Sasa phase 3 itakuwa ni kurudi sasa pale, alafu hiyo uso yote, ngozi yote itolewe, sasa ndio awekewe ngozi sawa tu kama hii yetu.
Through well wishes, she has been able to have her first surgery, and according to the hospital, her extent of reconstruction totals to 1.5 million for the 3 major surgeries that she is supposed to undergo.
Akiwa na chochote, wanisaidie chochote juu, silipi school fees, watoto ana chochote.
Even in her tribulations, Joyce tells me she has forgiven the people who killed her husband in cold blood and stole her life from her. Betty Kyalo, KTN.
And Joyce has been an active voice in calling for peace, and we commend her for doing that through her scars. We move on now to another story related to insecurity. Political leaders from Bungoma County have challenged the government to give out a full report on police investigations into the rampant insecurity and killings in Western Kenya. The leaders want the government to give their findings of the recent killings and what actions have been taken to curb future incidents.
Speaking at a funeral service for former town clerk George Masinde, who was murdered in his home at Nalondo village in Bungoma County last week, the leaders regretted that the government has remained quiet over the killings in Bungoma County that left several dead and others injured.
Tukae pamoja tuulize serikali, Muluya hajajulikana kuwa mtu wa kukatakata watu. Ni nini inafanyika? Watu wetu wanafariki kila siku.
The leaders challenged the government to give out a full report on police investigations into insecurity and killings, noting that the media exposed criminal gangs in the area, yet the police have not given any reports over the gangs.
Na ukiuliza polisi, they have the quickest exit route. Wanasema hii ni siasa. That is the quickest exit route they have. Where they can't answer any questions, ni siasa. Where they can't explain, ni siasa. Where they can't arrest, ni siasa.
Our soldiers, please, for heaven's sake, take your work seriously. Na vijana wetu ama leaders hapa Bungoma, jambo ambalo nataka kuelezea ni moja. Msipokuwa pamoja na tuweke tena watu Western pamoja, kazi yetu itakuwa ngumu.
The leaders did not evade the controversial matter of alleged drug baron Nigerian national Anthony Chinedu and how his alleged accomplice may have sneaked back to the country despite having been deported to Nigeria.
We want to tell the president kwamba kikulacho kiko nguoni mwako. Wale watu ambao wanafanya biashara na Chinedu ndio wale ambao wameingiza Chinedu back to Kenya so that their business can continue.
Mimi nimekuwa nikisimama mbele nikisema I would like our people to pull together. And I still maintain I want our people to pull together.
The leaders vowed to remain united and support their own in preparation for the 2017 general election.
Well, it's time for us to take a short break. After the break, Checkpoint will be discussing what the Jubilee government has done or hasn't done in the last nearly 100 days since they took office. Don't go too far. We'll be back with more after these messages.